Welcome to the 12th episode of Anycast. This is my podcast on YouTube where I talk about any topic that's going on, mainly sports. Although today we're going to start by sending condolences out to the following um, Chadwick Boseman's family, along with Cliff Robinson's family. Both of those uh, very talented individuals both passed away within the last couple of days. For those who didn't know Chadwick Boseman, he played Jackie Robinson in the biopic 42. He was also in the Black Panther movie and was a superstar in that Marvel movie phenomenon. He unfortunately passed away after 4 years of battling colon cancer. He was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. It then got bumped up to stage 4, but despite that, he continued to persevere. He continued to fight, and he continued to make movies. And if you haven't watched the Black Panther, it's a good movie from what I've heard. I haven't had a chance to see it myself, but from what I've heard, it's a really good movie. So you definitely want to check that one out. Cliff Robinson was a former NBA player. He was primarily played with the Portland Trailblazers back in the 90s. He and the Blazers made the NBA Finals during the Michael Jordan Bulls era. That is where you're probably going to remember him. He unfortunately died yesterday, actually, in Portland. And so that's a difficult loss to deal with. So we've had those two the last couple of days. And so my condolences go out to the families of Cliff Robinson and Chadwick Boseman. And as Wolf Blitzer always says, may their memories be a blessing. And truly they are. They're absolutely remarkable talents, both of them. Now, moving on to other topics. We're going to talk about sports, but we're going to start with what happened during the course of the week because, in a way, it kind of felt like March all over again. As you probably have heard by now, what unfolded in Kenosha is absolutely unfortunate. Jacob Blake, he got shot 7 times in the back by a policeman as they were taking him away. Unfortunately, his kids had to witness this. And so you have to feel for the family because now the kids are going to be scarred emotionally in regards to this. Thankfully, Blake is alive. He is in stable condition, but he is paralyzed. So my prayers go out to him and his family, and I'm hoping that they can get through and just be able to try to live a normal life. But that, of course, has reminded us of what we are still struggling with, and that is equality, and that is unity, and that is police brutality. And so the NBA, and it all started with the Milwaukee Bucks, and you figured they were going to be the ones that are going to start this because they represent Wisconsin. They boycotted their playoff game on Wednesday against the Magic. And when that happened, the other NBA games and the NBA decided to postpone all those games. That, of course, led to a trickle-down effect where just about all the MLB teams, along with the remaining NHL teams who are still in the playoffs, the MLS teams, and the tennis players who were playing in that tournament in Cincinnati, all of them boycotted their events. And so they got postponed. Now, this is not like March where it essentially got canceled and they had to deal with the pandemic and moving on. This was for a couple of days, just as a reminder and a wake-up call of what we're still having to deal with. And for what it's worth, and believe me, I need sports. You know me. I'm a diehard sports fan. I'm passionate about my sports. And so while I felt a little bummed about what unfolded, I applaud everybody for what they did. The NBA teams, the MLB teams, the NHL teams, the MLS teams, and the tennis players, and also the NFL teams. Some of them withheld their practices to protest. And Pete Carroll made a strong statement, and I highly recommend watching that because his message is loud and clear. We need to be more unified. And this was a wake-up call to all of us that we are still struggling with an issue that continues to be an issue, and it should not be an issue. we need to remember what we were taught as kids. We need to treat others the way we want to be treated. We need to show kindness. We need to show caring. We can do this. And we can make changes. This is another reminder that we need change because the president continues to just push the issue aside because he's worried about his re-election bid. That's why he waited until this weekend to first go down to Louisiana and Texas and the Gulf Coast to deal with the hurricane. And then now he's going to be going to Kenosha. But before that, he thought his RNC speech was more important than dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Laura and dealing with the Kenosha shootings. That's your president. That's someone who doesn't care about us, who doesn't care about what's going on. He only cares about himself. And while we're on the subject of Hurricane Laura, I send my deepest prayers to everyone down there. Unfortunately, there have been some casualties. You kind of figured that was going to be the case with a hurricane of that magnitude. And you figured there's going to be some power outages going on in that area. And that could take not days. It could take weeks, maybe months. That remains to be seen. But my prayers are definitely going out to those in the Gulf Coast. And I hope that everyone's doing okay there. And hopefully that they can recover as soon as they can and try to get back to some form of normalcy. But we need change. We need someone who's going to care about us. And so that's where Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to come in. And I emphasized this during my podcast throughout, that we need change. We need someone who's going to help us take care of what's going on and understand us, show empathy. That's Joe Biden. And so I feel like if this doesn't wake you up, then I don't know what's going to. One other thing that I'm applauding the NBA for, they're allowing all their arenas as voting places because, as you are aware, we are still dealing with a pandemic. And so it's going to be tough to go out and vote, especially when Trump is trying to eliminate mail-in balloting because he thinks it's fraud. It's not. It barely is fraud, if anything. But he's closing the polling booths. And so that makes it tough for us to try to go out and vote. But the NBA, what they're doing in allowing their arenas to be voting booths, and the Dodgers are doing the same thing too with their stadium, I believe. I might be wrong. You can fact check me on that one. But I applaud the NBA for what they're doing because now we have polling areas where we can go out and feel comfortable voting. As long as we keep our social distancing and wear masks, we can try to avoid the catastrophe that unfolded in Wisconsin when that primary took place in April. So I definitely encourage you. In fact, I request that you go out and vote because you can help make a difference in our lives because this is an important election. Now, putting all that aside, let's talk about some lighter stuff going on because there are sports going on. Bucks and the Magic, or Bucks and the Lakers. Just when we thought we were going to write those two teams off after shocking Game 1 defeats, they go on and show us why they're the number one seeds. They go win 4 straight, and now they both have advanced in 5 games. So, once again, looking very much like the teams to beat. The Raptors have been waiting in the wings for their opponent. They get the Boston Celtics in round 2. And the Sixers are no longer the process. They have fired their coach. That team has been an absolute disaster as far as expectations are concerned. The Celtics swept them. So, yeah, that's how that unfolded. Some of the playoff series are still going on at this point in the first round. The NHL is deep into their second rounds right now. Colorado got a much-needed win. They got a pivotal Game 4 tonight. Vegas took a 2-1 series lead last night. They play their Game 4 tonight. Flyers took a shocking loss to the Islanders, and they're now down 2-1. Their Game 4 is also tonight. And the Lightning look very much like a different team than last year. If you remember Virginia's men's basketball team, remember that they were the first and only number 1 seed to lose to a 16th seed. That happened in 2018. They came back last year and won the national championship. Could we be seeing this with the Tampa Bay Lightning? Remember, they won 62 games last year and won the President's Trophy and got swept in the first round by the Blue Jackets. And now here they are. They've gone from that to now 1 win away from a trip to the Eastern Conference Finals. and eliminating the defending Eastern Conference champion Bruins, who, to their credit, at least got by one round, unlike their Stanley Cup final opponent of a year ago, the Blues. But they really haven't looked like themselves either since they returned from the pandemic. And the Lightning look like a really, really different team. Helps that you got a tough guy like Pat Maroon, who happened to play for the Blues last year. And so he's got that Stanley Cup experience of winning it all. And so he's carried that to the Lightning, and they have a much different attitude than what they had at this point last year. And so I think that's going to be a team to watch out for. And they have a pretty good chance to get to the Cup Finals. I mean, I thought the Flyers were going to do it because they looked like the Blues of a year ago, but they are struggling right now against the Islanders, and they kind of struggled with the Canadiens. So I don't know about that. We'll see what happens, but I think the Lightning look good. Vegas looks pretty darn good right now. I think right now, if I were to predict the Stanley Cup Finals based on what's unfolded at this point, I go Vegas and the Lightning. And that would be a pretty popular Stanley Cup Finals. I would put money on that one. That would be a fun one. Baseball-wise, well, the Twins have taken a hit, and all of a sudden now they're third in a division that they had owned for virtually the whole season at this point. And that's because the Indians continue to be on the roll, and the White Sox have done really well. That division continues to be what I think is the best division in baseball. And even the two teams who the Twins have struggled with, Detroit and Kansas City, both have potential. They may or may not make the playoffs based on the expansion of the playoff teams. But if they don't, they're definitely going to be pesky with some of these other teams. So I think all around, top to bottom, the AL Central is the best division in baseball. And speaking of teams that we thought were going to be making a run and are struggling, how about them Yankees? They lost 7 in a row before they walked it off on what else but a wild pitch against the Mets, who they just before got swept in a doubleheader by. What in the world is going on with the Yankees? All the injuries are starting to catch up to them. And now the Blue Jays, yes, the Toronto Blue Jays, who are not even playing in their home stadium because Canada kicked them out because they don't want them spreading the virus in their country. So they have to play their games in their minor league affiliate stadium in Buffalo. They have a chance to make the playoffs. And they're only a half game behind the Yankees. I mean, what in the world is going on here? If this does not sum up 2020 in a nutshell, I don't know what will. This is absolutely crazy what is unfolded right now. And the Cubs are struggling too, although they did bounce back last night. They're struggling too. And so I don't know what to make. Could we be seeing a 1988 rematch all over again? Because right now the Oakland A's and the LA Dodgers look like the two most consistent teams in baseball. My only concern with the Dodgers is their playoff history in recent years does not bode confidence in me. So we shall see how that unfolds. But this is really getting interesting. And then we get to the NASCAR race. How about William Byron? You knew I was going to talk about that because I'm a Hendrick guy. William Byron got his first career win last night. If you did not watch that Daytona race, it was exciting from start to finish. The end of the stages were unbelievable because you knew going in, Matt DiBenedetto and William Byron were in on points going in. Matty D was 9 points to the good. William Byron was 4 points to the good. And then there was the 7-time champ Jimmy Johnson, who was 4 points out. Jimmy Johnson, William Byron, and Matt DiBenedetto were fighting for stage points because they knew every point mattered in order to make the playoffs. Well, it looked like Johnson was going to be in shape to maybe get in on points and perhaps make a run for title number 8 in what will be his final season. But unfortunately, a late caution, which they picked up Jimmy Johnson in a wreck, knocked Johnson out of contention. To his credit and to his team's credit, they got the car back so he could run laps, and he actually finished in 17th. Unfortunately, he came up 6 points short. And so I was really, really disappointed because I wanted to see Johnson make the playoffs in his final year. I didn't think he was going to win it all, but you never know. And I wanted to see him make a run at it in his final season, much like Jeff Gordon's final full season and how he was able to get to Homestead that year. That was unbelievable. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. So at this point, you're hoping for Jimmy Johnson to at least get one more win before the season is over and he calls it a career. Um, but that set the stage for an unbelievable finish. And William Byron, somehow, some way, and in the caution beforehand, there was a big wreck that happened, and it looked like William Byron was going to be collected in it. He somehow dodged all that. And how big was that save? He wound up winning the race as a result. He thwarted off the competition. He managed to make a push for the lead. He dodged another caution late when he was able to squeeze in between Logano and Bubba Wallace. That's when the wreck happened that knocked Jimmy Johnson out. And so that's unfortunate, but you can't say that cost him the shot at the title. You have to go back to the Charlotte race, the Coca-Cola 600, where he finished second, but got his positioning disqualified because he failed post-race inspection. And so he got 0 points. And then also missing the Brickyard 400 because of his COVID-19 positive test, where he also ended up with 0 points. Those two races ultimately cost him getting into the playoffs. But you would have thought that would have been another, here comes another downer on a rough day, because the Twins got swept in a doubleheader yesterday by the Tigers, who, by the way, look like a team that could be a reckoning team for years to come. But then William Byron makes all that up by pulling out that dramatic of a win, and to get into the playoffs on that win was absolutely unbelievable. And for those who do not know, he's driving the 24 car. He is only the second driver to win a Cup Series race with that iconic number. The only other one to do it happens to be my favorite driver and the driver who got me into NASCAR, Jeff Gordon. And Bob Pockris, who works for Fox, has a stat buddy who came up with this stat. Jeff Gordon won his first Cup race, which was the Coke 600, at age 22, 9 months old. William Byron won his first race 24 days after Jeff Gordon's first win. Think about that, folks. How about that for unbelievable coincidence? And you talk about the last two wins for that number. Jeff Gordon's 2015 Martinsville win and William Byron's win last night. Both of them were pressure-packed races where you had to win to advance. In Gordon's case, it was to get to the championship 4 at Homestead. In Byron's case, it was to get into the playoffs. And wouldn't you know it, Rick Allen, who absolutely is a remarkable broadcaster, he does the NASCAR races on NBC. He does a heck of a job calling races for that channel. He happened to be on the call for both of those races. So talk about another coincidence there. And who happened to push William Byron to the win? Another one of my Hendrick guys, Chase Elliott, who had no business whatsoever being up there. He was running in the back virtually the whole race because, again, he got nothing at stake. He finds a way to get himself up at the front at the end, and he pushed William Byron to the win. How awesome is that to get that 1-2 finish in with Hendrick? And for Byron to get his first win in that fashion, that was absolutely unbelievable. Now, of course, you're wondering who got that other spot then, because you know William Byron's win got him in. It wound up being Matt DiBenedetto. And if you haven't met the guy, which I haven't, but I've been watching his stuff and been following him on social media, he's an absolutely cool guy to hang out with. I mean, he was asked on Race Hub yesterday, you're struggling and now you're in a situation where now you're not feeling so comfortable. And he's like, no worries. It's all about racing. That's how racing goes. That's how NASCAR goes. He's a cool guy, and he was stoked to make the playoffs. And so if Johnson couldn't make it, I could not be more happier to see Matty D make the playoffs. He's earned it. His story is unbelievable because last year he drove for the 95 team, and he almost won the Bristol race that Hamlin was able to hold him off in. That got him the Wood Brothers ride in the 21 car. And he's in the playoffs, and so I could not be happier for that young man. He definitely has potential ahead of him, and he's going to get his win soon. But that's awesome that he made the playoffs, and so that sets the stage for Darlington. Now, if you watched my podcast last week, I, of course, was bragging about Jimmy Johnson and the Henrik cars and their paint schemes. We have since added another cool paint scheme. Going back to Denny Hamlin, he's going to pay tribute to FedEx's history because before they were called Federal Express, before they shortened the name to FedEx. Because in case you haven't figured it out, FedEx is short for Federal Express. If you have not seen his paint scheme, you need to check that out because it is absolutely unbelievable. He's paying tribute to that, and the number font is paying tribute to Cale Yarborough, who is an absolute legend in NASCAR. If I'm ranking the Darlington schemes, you know where I'm going with my top four. Johnson, and then you can do a flip between Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman, and then Byron. After that, I'm putting Denny Hamlin's on there as the best of the non-Hendrick Darlington schemes. Because you know I'm going Hendrick is the best Darlington schemes. But after that, I got to go Denny Hamlin. That's awesome. So definitely check that out because you're going to see some really cool paint schemes. I obviously talked about the Hendrick ones last week. And then obviously Denny Hamlin's will be there as well. So you want to watch that just for the fun of those paint schemes. And so that pretty much is it for sports. So definitely let me know what you think. Let me know who you're rooting for as far as your sports teams go. I would love to hear from you guys. And so that's it. And until next time, take care, guys, and stay safe.